In the hushed tension of a packed Atlanta courtroom, where justice hung by a thread, a smug police officer unleashed a vicious, racially charged kick against a black janitor mopping the floor, oblivious that the presiding judge, a steely-eyed former Delta Force commander with a hidden arsenal of resolve, was watching from the bench, ready to turn the tables on unchecked brutality in an instant that would echo through the halls of power. Judge Harlan Hawk Whitaker had commanded respect long before he donned the black robe. At 52 years old, he had spent 15 years in the U.S. Army's elite Delta Force, leading high-stakes operations in the desert of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan. His call sign, Hawk, came from his uncanny ability to spot threats from afar, a skill honed during raids that dismantled terrorist cells and rescued hostages under fire. After retiring as a colonel in 2012, Whitaker traded his fatigues for a law degree from Emory University, channeling his discipline into the Fulton County Superior Court. Now in his 8th year on the bench, he presided over cases with no-nonsense demeanor, his piercing blue eyes missing nothing. Colleagues whispered that he still carried the weight of classified missions in his posture, straight-backed, unyielding. Yet, Whitaker kept his military past low-key. Only a select few knew the full extent of his combat record, including a Distinguished Service Cross for valor in Fallujah. The janitor in question, Leroy Jenkins, was a fixture in the courthouse, a 58-year-old widower who had cleaned these marble halls for 22 years. Born and raised in Atlanta's Sweet Auburn neighborhood, Leroy had lost his wife to cancer a decade earlier and raised her 2 daughters alone, both now teachers in the public schools. He started as a night shift custodian after a stint in construction, finding solace in the quiet rhythm of mopping floors and emptying trash bins. Leroy was known for his gentle smile and willingness to chat with clerks during breaks, often sharing stories of his days playing semi-pro baseball in the Negro League's twilight years. He earned $14 an hour, enough to cover his rent in a modest apartment and send small checks to his grandkids. On this crisp October morning in 2023, Leroy arrived at 6 a.m. sharp, his Navy uniform crisp, pushing his mop bucket through the corridors as the first lawyers trickled in. Officer Travis Boone, 34, was a 6-year veteran of the Atlanta PD's tactical unit, assigned to courtroom security that day. Boone had joined the force after a forgettable college football career at Georgia State, where he bulked up on steroids and developed a chip on his shoulder about affirmative action hires stealing spots. His personnel file bulged with complaints, 3 for excessive force, 2 for racial slurs during arrests, but internal affairs had cleared him each time, citing heat of a moment. Boone patrolled the halls with swagger, his utility belt creaking under the weight of cuffs, taser, and baton. He viewed courthouse duty as a drag, a punishment for mouthing off to a sergeant, and he took out his boredom on anyone who crossed his path, especially those he deemed below him. The courtroom 7B, was scheduled for a routine felony arraignment docket, drug possession, DUIs, and a domestic violence case. Judge Whitaker took the bench at 9:15 a.m., his gavel rapping sharply to call the room to order. About 40 people filled the pew-like benches. Defendants in orange jumpsuits, their attorneys scribbling notes, prosecutors flipping through files, and a smattering of family members clutching tissues. Leroy entered midway through the session, during a brief recess, tasked with mopping a spill from an overturned coffee cup near the jury box. He moved quietly, his bucket wheels whispering against the tile, humming an old gospel tune under his breath to keep his spirits up. Boone, stationed at the rear door, spotted Leroy immediately. The officer had clashed with him before, once over a blocked aisle that was really just Leroy's vacuum cord, and harbored a grudge, muttering to fellow officers about lazy porch monkeys who ruined the place. As Leroy swabbed near the bar separating the gallery from the well of court, his mop sloshed a bit of water toward Boone's polished boots. It wasn't much, a mere droplet, but Boone seized it like a gift. "Hey, watch where you're slopping that crap," Boone barked, striding forward with his chest puffed. His voice boomed over the recess chatter, drawing eyes from the benches. Leroy paused, gripping the mop handle, and turned slowly. "Sorry, officer. Didn't mean to. I'll clean it right up." Boone's lip curled. "Yeah, you will, but not before you apologize proper. On your knees, boy. Show some respect for the uniform." The room stilled. A prosecutor, mid-conversation with a public defender, froze. A defendant's mother in the back row whispered to her neighbor. Leroy's face tightened, but he kept his tone even, years of swallowing pride in Jim Crow's shadow teaching him survival. I said sorry, sir. Ain't no need for that. Boone stepped closer, invading Leroy's space, his breath hot with coffee and contempt. What did you say? Ain't no need? Boy, you forget your place? This here's a courthouse, not some cotton field. Get on your damn knees and scrub like the help you are. Leroy straightened, his knuckles whitening on the mop. I ain't no boy. Name's Leroy Jenkins, and I got work to do. That did it. Boone's face reddened, veins bulging in his neck. Without warning, he lashed out with a swift kick to Leroy's shin, the steel toe of his boot connecting with a thud that echoed like a gunshot. Leroy staggered, pain shooting up his leg, but he caught himself on the mop bucket, biting back a yelp. What the hell? You mouthed off again, and it'll be your ribs next. Boone snarled, low enough for only those nearby to hear, but laced with venom. Know your lane, N. The slur hung unspoken, but its ghost poised in the air. Gasps rippled through the gallery. The public defender, a young black woman named Aisha Patel, shot to her feet. Your Honor, this officer just assaulted a courthouse employee. Judge Whitaker, who had been reviewing a plea agreement at the bench, looked up slowly. His eyes, sharp as a sniper's scope, locked onto Boone. The room held its breath. Whitaker had seen violence up close, ambushes in Baghdad, knife fights in Kabul. But this was different, raw, unprovoked, in a sanctuary of law. He remembered his own Delta training. The creed, protect the innocent, neutralize the threat. But here, the threat wore a badge. Officer, Whitaker said, his voice a controlled thunder, rising from the bench without banging the gavel. Step forward. Now! Boone turned, surprise flickering across his features. Then defiance. He sauntered to the bar, thumbs hooked in his belt. Yes, Your Honor? Just keeping order. This janitor was disruptive. Whitaker's gaze didn't waver. Disruptive? By mopping a spill? I saw the entire exchange from here. You kicked a man unprovoked. And I heard the tone, the implication. Care to explain yourself? Boone shifted, glancing at the bailiff, who avoided his eyes. Heat of the moment, Judge. He's been warned before about blocking paths. I was enforcing protocol. Protocol, Whitaker repeated, the word dripping with disdain. He leaned forward, his hands flat on the bench, calluses from years of gripping rifles still rough against the polished wood. In my courtroom, protocol means due process, not assaulting civilians. Bailiff, take Officer Boone into custody, charge him with battery and disorderly conduct, and notify Internal Affairs immediately. The bailiff, a burly sergeant named Ramirez, hesitated for a split second. Boone was one of their own, but Whitaker's stare brooked no argument. Ramirez cuffed Boone swiftly, the click of metal echoing. You can't do this. Boone protested, twisting against the restraints. I'm a cop. This is bullshit. Whitaker ignored the outburst, turning to Leroy, who had limped to a bench, rubbing his shin. Mr. Jenkins, are you all right? Clerk, get medical attention in here. And for the record, this court will not tolerate racism or violence under its roof. Officer Boone, your actions disgrace the badge you wear. The gallery erupted in murmurs, some approving nods from black attendees, shocked whispers from others. Aisha Patel approached Leroy, offering her arm. Sir, that was assault. You should press charges. Leroy nodded gratefully, his voice steady despite the pain. Appreciate it, miss. Been through worse, but yeah, reckon I will. Word spread like smoke through the courthouse corridors. By noon, the incident had hit the local PD's dispatch radio. All units. Code 10 at Superior Court. Officer in custody for assault on staff. Chief Randall Hayes, a 25-year veteran with a mustache like a broom bristle, stormed into courtroom 7B during the lunch recess, demanding a private word with Whitaker. Your Honor, Hayes began, cap in hand, his face flushed. This is a misunderstanding. Boone's a good officer. Hot-headed, sure, but